Did you ever think living in an HOA that you could get away with an antenna farm? That might be possible. Stick around. I'll show you what I've done. This is Steve, K4SRF, and let's discuss HOAs and antenna farms. A very unlikely combination. If you're at all familiar with HOAs, homeowner associations, some can be very strict and some are not quite as strict. You know, it depends on the homeowner association. That would be very lenient in some ways and not. In my case, they don't want you to have antennas visible from the front yard or front street. I kind of broke that regulation when I became a ham radio operator and ended up with Aries. And I went ahead and put a base station in and erected a 33-foot telescoping mast with a Comet GP3 on it, UHF Vhf antenna, so that I could reach out to SARnet and to the local Aries stations if needed. Now, the homeowners association, I talked to the president and some of the officers, and they explained why I needed that up there. And they were pretty lenient. They said, okay, that sounds good, because they kind of like the idea of having a ham radio operator in this area, on the street itself, actually, in the neighborhood, that they could turn to for communication, emergency communications in the event of a hurricane or tornadoes or whatever, any other weather event where they have a possibility of losing their cell phone connectivity. Now, I think I probably overstepped their leniency a little bit when I put up my second antenna, an HF antenna, which at this point was a Alpha Delta fan dipole. And it again was up on a 33-foot mast, I believe it was. The hurricane destroyed one of the masts, so I've had to rebuild that, and it's now on a different mast. But it was up about 33 feet. And again, they kind of turned a blind eye, and they said, well, it's really not too noticeable unless you're looking for it. So it's not like it's nothing like a large tower with a Yagi or beams or anything like that. So they've kind of accepted this one as well. Well, now I may have already stepped over the boundary one too many times. They may say something to me this time, because I've erected another antenna, another vertical antenna. Again, this is an HF antenna, a Cushcraft R9 antenna, which is on top of a 15-foot mast. So it's topping from ground to top of the antenna about 50 feet. It's on a tilt mast system, but I'll show you all that in just a few minutes here. So I may be overstepping my leniency here. They may say something to me now, but only time will tell. But before we go any further, like I said, an HOA, an antenna farm, really an odd combination. So let's go out in my backyard and I'll show you my my antenna farm as it is. Now, before we make a trip out to the backyard, I do want to tell you one thing. My backyard is a mess. Between Hurricane Sally, which hit earlier this year, and just trying to get some of these trees trimmed back and the yard cleaned up, the yard that is an absolute shambles. It does not look good at all. You'll see some trash and some stuff that needs to be thrown out, but I couldn't get the stuff outside of the yard because of the Cushcraft R9 being down in the down position, and it was actually blocking the exit. I could not bring stuff to and from out of the gate. So now that it's back up, I was able to get some of the stuff out, and you'll still see stuff in the backyard. So whatever you do, don't judge me too harshly on the condition of my yard. It will be cleaned up over the next couple of months. Anyway, enough of this. Let's just go out in the backyard. Let me show you what I've done and show you my HOA antenna farm. Okay, the first antenna I'm going to show you here is my Vhf Uhf. It is the Comet GP3 that I got a year or so ago. It stands on a 33-foot mast. Antenna itself is about 5.5 feet in length, so it's getting close to 40 feet from base to bottom. Currently, I only have one set of guys, 3 ways, going to this mast, and I'm actually using wire at this point. When I do replace this metal guy wire, I'm going to be replacing it with mast strand rope. As I said, this 33 foot, mast of 33 foot antenna is just over 5.5, almost 5'7" So we're looking at 38, almost 39 feet from the tip of the antenna to the base, and it works fairly well. This is the remnants of Hurricane Sally. It snapped this particular mast in half. I did have a vertical HF antenna on here. It totally destroyed the antenna and the mast. I'm gonna mount something else here, probably a weather station or something at one point. So I'm just keeping what's left of this mast here, that is, until I actually get the weather station in place. These other two antennas here, the one on the left is the Cushcraft R9 antenna. It's topping out at almost 50 feet from base to ground level, that is, to the tip. The other is a 37-foot mast with Alpha Delta DXCC multi-band dipole, or better known as a fan dipole. Like I said, it's topping at about let's say that's about 40 feet, and the Cushcraft is almost hitting 50 feet up in the air. Here's another view of the HF antennas, and as you can see, they're guided. I'm using mast strength to guide these down. The Cushcraft is on a tilt antenna base. I'll show you that a little bit closer in a minute. And the Alpha Delta DXCC, the mast is mounted to the eave of the house itself. And excuse the yard, like I said, I've been focusing on the antennas. I've got to do some major yard cleanup and throw a bunch of stuff away. So don't judge me on my yard. Guying these antennas was a little bit of a challenge because I had to crisscross in several locations, and in the case of the Cushcraft antenna, I cannot take that antenna down unless I remove or untie some guy wires from the Alpha Delta antenna mast. So it's kind of a challenge to crisscross these wires to make sure they don't interfere with the guy process of the other antenna, make sure they weren't conflicting with each other. Currently, I have them guided to either post or to the fence, and this is really just a rough guy. This is not the finished product. I'm just needed to get guided, and I'm going to get rid of some of the excess mast strength and tidy up these cables and connectors as well. Just another view of how I've got it guided to a mat, or to a post that is in the ground. I don't have these 4x4s concreted in, but they're down about 2.5 feet, and for what their purpose is just to stabilize. So that's pretty solid right there. This is a close-up of the pulley system I have on the Alpha Delta dipole antenna, the fan antenna. If I need to do maintenance on this particular antenna, or need to bring it down for any reason, I don't have to lower the whole mast to get to it. I simply have a rope attached to the center insulator there. It goes through a pulley system, and I just use some paracord going straight to the ground, and I just simply lower it when I need to, and then when I get through, I can just go ahead and, using the pulley system, pull it back up to its location and then tie it down. Unlike the 3 guy wire and 1 location guide on the Vhf Uhf mast, on the Cushcraft R9, it being 31 and something feet high in length and everything, I went ahead and guide this down in a 4-way guide position. Also, I've also guided in 2 locations. One's towards the top and the other towards the bottom here, close to the bottom. And I find guying it twice and with 4 wires helps stabilize the unit itself. The tilt mast setup here, I got some ideas off the internet from some other users, other ham radio operators that use the same system. Kind of improvised a little bit and used a little of their ideas in mine. These are the the end post, all three of the end posts going into the ground here, are all schedule 20 fence pipe. They're going into the ground here about 2.5–3 feet down, and they are concreted in with rebar and concrete. I've got down here a anchor, which is also cemented in and concreted in, that holds one of the pulleys for this system here. Now the center post, where the actually has the antenna attached to it here, one in the center, which is about 6 to 8 inches off the ground, is now schedule 40 pipe. I use schedule 40 pipe because of the antenna itself is not heavy. It's only 25–27 pounds, but due to the angle, I had to lower it and raise it. The schedule 40 pipe just works better. It's a lot more stable. To stabilize the tilt system, I have improvised, or I've added 2 bars, aluminum bars with U-bolts attached to the top section and the bottom section here. The bottom section prevents the mast from extending forward too far, whereas the top provides the same protection, but it keeps it from going too far to the rear. And like I said, they're attached to the 2 end posts with a piece of aluminum bar and U-bolts. And of course, the center mast itself fits very nicely in between the 2 end posts. Once the mast is in its upright position, I secure it with 2 more sets of supports, one upper and one lower. These are steel bars that I have got bolts attached to them that basically just wedge or sandwich the pipes together, as you can see here. And once again down here. And basically this just holds the pipes into place. Other than, if I didn't do that, the only thing that would keep this pole secure would be the winch itself and the winch cable, which I don't want to just rely on the winch cable itself. I would like to have additional supports for the stabilization of this antenna mast. The hand winch I'm using is capable of moving 3,500 pounds, and you may think this is a little overkill, but I used the recommendation of someone else and used a winch that had an 800-pound pull. However, after about the 4th time that I raised and lowered the antenna mast, it actually wore the winch out to the point where it was not functioning. So I figured 3,500 pounds of pull power plus a proper pulley system should work just fine, and this thing goes up and down with very little effort. Of course, I do have the support post here where I originally had the first winch, but I've moved the winch over to the side post, as you can see here. I have got the winch with the cable coming from the front, as you can see, coming from the front, going down through one pulley here, which is bolted in, going down to the second bolt, a pulley down here which is attached to the eye hook or eye bolt that is concreted in, and it in turn goes up to an eye bolt that's drilled and put through the base of the center mast, and that's where it's hooked on to. This leverage system and positions of the pulleys and the winch itself makes the raising and lowering of this mast a breeze. One thing I would like to note though is before I put these completely forged eye bolts in here, I had eye hooks that were rounded and not forged as a solid unit, and it actually pulled those apart, and these I found out are a lot more secure and stable. So if you do this type of pulley system, and if you want to hook something onto a support pole or support mast, regardless of the weight, these are not that expensive. I suggest you get the solidly forged solid eye bolts instead of the ones that are bent over to make an eye bolt. The ones that are bent over simply just don't maintain their strength. This is a view of the Cushcraft R9 on its mast, and that's how it looks when it's fully extended. And if you've noticed, you don't see any coax connected to this antenna, and there's a good reason for that. As of this filming, I am waiting for some RG13 coax and some PL259s to come in. Should be here today. And once I get the PL259 soldered on, I'll lower this antenna and connect the coax to this antenna, put some coax seal and some electrical tape on the connector, and run it into the shack. Okay, this is just a view from the front of the house of the HOA Antenna Farm. My antenna farm here, is as you want to call it. Like I said, the HOA has been pretty lenient up until this point. Let's just see if they say anything now. Well, there you have it, guys. That's my antenna farm, my HOA antenna farm, complete with the Comet, the Alpha Delta, and the Cushcraft antennas. Only time will tell whether I'm allowed to keep them up there or somebody's going to start fussing. Never know, you know people. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and click that bell to be notified of upcoming videos. Until next time, 73, and we'll catch you on the airwaves.